All rise. All persons having matters before this court, draw near and give your attention. The Honorable Francis Rayford presiding. Be seated.
This is Law Journal.
There are more than 30 million Americans over age 65. In 30 years, that will double. Are we proactively planning for our elder years?
Here's the host of Law Journal, attorney Christopher Naughton.
Well, a recent USA Today poll says that 1/3 of the elder population is dissatisfied with the way their caretakers are managing their business and legal affairs. 1/3 of you. Apparently we're not ready to grow old in this country, at least not in the legal sense. Well, this week on Law Journal, Elder Law, one of those programs we only get a chance to do, but once a year, tonight's tonight, and proactive elder care planning is what we'll be focusing on. We're going to try to cover as much as possible. You know, it covers, elder law is just such a wide area. Nursing homes, Medicaid, guardianship, estate planning. I'm probably forgetting, what, about 30 or 40 different sub-areas of this very broad area of the law. We will be opening up our 1-800 telephone lines in just a few minutes. And each week here on Law Journal, we like to run a viewer survey. And this viewer survey we're running is pretty much similar to the one that ran in the USA Today edition last week. I think it was about a week or so ago. And here is this week's survey question. As an elder person, are you satisfied with how your caregivers or how your caregiver is handling your legal and business affairs? And that could be your son or your daughter or your attorney or what have you. If you'd like to vote tonight, again, if you'd like to have your vote counted, dial 1-888, that's toll-free, 869-VOTE, 8683. Those are the last 4 digits. And again, my producer asks that you call prior to the last 5 or 10 minutes of the program. Otherwise, we cannot possibly calculate your vote. We have 2 New Jersey attorneys with me tonight. Brenda McElnay and Thomas Begley are both certified elder law attorneys, members of NALA, which is the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, and are both prominent members of New Jersey's Elder Law section. Brenda is a former adjunct professor at Rutgers Law School, and she speaks extensively on the aging and the disabled client. And seated next to her, Tom Begley, who's been lecturing and writing for decades, right, Tom, on elder law, and has been seen and published in national media, including this television program several times in the past. We also have attorneys from Pennsylvania and from New York this evening. Nancy Solnick joins us once again from Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania. I think at one time, Nancy, I put your firm in Newton, Pennsylvania, did I not? I think we got that cleared up. She's from Plymouth Meeting, a few, what would you say, about maybe a half hour outside of Philadelphia and thereabouts.
It's a close-in suburb to Philadelphia.
Yeah, somewhere between, we know it's between the Lehigh Valley and Philadelphia. Nancy is also a founding member of NALA, again, the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. She has dedicated her practice to preserving and fostering the rights of the elderly. And seated next to Nancy is the freshman, if I might say, on the set tonight, although he is certainly no stranger to elder law. Howard Crooks joins us tonight from New York City and White Plains, New York. And this, again, is his first time, and Mr. Crooks devotes substantially all of his time to elder law and trusts and estate matters. He, too, is a NALA member, a well-known author, a key player in New York's elder law section, and later this year, sometime in the fall of 1998, he will teach ethical issues in elder law at New York University. Howard, thanks for joining us tonight again for the first time. And good to see all of you folks again.
Chris, for the record.
Always good to have you around. Again, we only get to do it once a year, and we're going to open up those 1-800 line in just a minute so that folks can get those questions to you, whether you're from New York or New Jersey, Connecticut, or Pennsylvania tonight. Well, what if you're a grandparent and maybe your son or daughter has broken up with his or her respective spouse? Do you still get a shot at visiting the grandchildren? Well, leave it to attorney Michael James Bryant to make a very confusing issue clear. Here he is with The Legal Edge.
Over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go. Well, not so fast these days. You may need the court to okay visitation.
Let's play! Okay.
You know, it's sad, but true with more folks getting divorced. So you've got the kids staying with one parent who hates the ex's parents, who are the grandparents of the confused kids. So the law has its way of giving grandma and grandpa visitation rights, even if the parent with the kids doesn't like it. I'll talk about some of the specific things the court will look at in just a second, but the biggie is always whether the grandparents had a close relationship with Junior. The law calls it a significant relationship. It's not how much time the grandparents plan to spend with Junior, it's how much time they've been spending up to now. That's what the court wants to know. Getting the court's okay to visit the grandchildren. The judge wants to know how close you are to the kids. How will your visits affect mom or dad? Why does mom or dad object to your visits in the first place? And the court also wants to know some basics like, do you have a criminal record? The best interest of the child. That's what the court is getting at here. So, knowing how to prove that your grandparental visits are a good thing will give you the legal edge.
See you, Gramps.
Gramps. For Law Journal, I'm attorney Michael James Bryant. Hey guys.
I was glad you kept the audio in there at the end. Michael was stuck, although he seems to always find a way out, at least legally. You know, it's so interesting as we look at that feature report, we see that visitation rights for grandparents is yet another issue that we'd find under this huge umbrella that we call elder law. It's an area of the law that almost defies description, isn't it?
It's sort of a blend of elder law and family law, I think.
Really?
In New Jersey, we have a statute, and the statute kind of spells out what the rights and responsibilities are. But I think the enforcement is in family court, and we have an associate in our office, Dana Rosansky, wrote an article about this about a year ago. And there haven't been a whole lot of cases, but...
I would have thought it's more of a blend of, well, again, elder law is the area, but I would think estate planning and something else. In fact, often people probably mistake elder law for estate planning.
A lot of times people think that elder law refers to elderly people practicing law.
Interesting.
Of course, there's no question that elder law continues to expand in its scope. Maybe 10 years ago, most people thought of it as just Medicaid and Medicare, but as your clip indicates, now we're including grandparents' visitation rights, and as Tom pointed out, family law is involved. Even in the Medicaid arena, sometimes you're bringing a support proceeding in family court. At least that's the way it works in New York, so it is an expanding area.
We may have in a guardianship context a matrimonial action. We can have divorces within a guardianship context. I think that the NAILA experience registry kind of, they have, NAILA attorneys can indicate what fields they specialize in, and there's kind of a laundry list, if you will, of issues that elder law attorneys address. It seems to me that they kind of fall into the category of matrimonial, estate planning and government benefits planning, and then a certain litigation faction, which may be Social Security disability appeals or consumer fraud.
In some ways, Brenda, I almost sense you have to be, I don't want to say a jack of all trades, but pretty close to it. You have to, again, we say you're an elder law attorney. We understand that. But because it is so broad, it's like someone who's a doctor and he's a general practitioner.
That's true. I believe, in our firm anyway, we specialize in a certain area of law. We do not do civil litigation. We would not do matrimonial. We would refer that out to another competent elder law attorney in that area. We stay with government benefits planning for the elderly and the disabled, guardianships, conservatorships, estate planning, retirement distribution planning. But if we have, when we have had guardianships that involved a matrimonial matter, we have brought in a matrimonial attorney who's familiar with elder law to do that.
Well, it's no secret that this area is booming, and it's pretty obvious as to why. Just take a look at how many people today are over the age of 65 in this graphic we've got here. Over the age of 65. Okay, well, first let's go to elder lawyers. One of the areas of growth is the number of attorneys who are actually jumping into this field. The National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, NAILA, again, you've heard us bandy that term about tonight, has grown from 540 lawyers back in 1990 to over 3,500. That's in 8 years, folks, and I don't know what the percentage jump is, but that's a pretty high jump. 300 lawyers are now members of the elder law section in New Jersey, and that section is only 4 years old. And these are the statistics that I wanted to point out originally of how many people are over the age of 65 in the country today. And, well, here we go. 1998, this year, 34 million. And just take a look as we get through 2000, 2010, 2020. in 30 years, 32 years, we're going to double the amount of people who are 65 and older. So it's a no-brainer that this is obviously an area of concern. But one area of concern I've got to say is, although I know all of your credentials, and that's why you're here tonight, but let's face it, there are a lot of people who are jumping back into the game, or jumping back into the game of elder law. And my question is, and especially for the consumer who's watching tonight, how do you know who's a good elder law attorney? They've just put their shingle out there. And again, this is a very broad area of the law. You don't want to have someone who's a novice doing something like this.
Chris, I think that people have to be really careful when selecting an elder law attorney. I can't tell you how many times clients have come into my office with a trust that was drafted by a general practitioner, somebody who may have attended one of my seminars, thought that by attending one of these seminars they were then up to speed on what they needed to know to practice. They took their crack at the trust, and I read it, and it's incredible what's going on out there. So I think consumers really do need to be aware before selecting an elder law attorney that this is somebody that focuses their practice exclusively on elder law and not just as tangential to their practices.
Is there certification in some of the states?
Yeah, there is. Well, there's national certification.
Only national certification
national.
at this point.
American Bar Association, the National Elder Law Foundation, through the American Bar Association, sponsors the certification process. I wouldn't say, Tom and I are both certified, but it doesn't mean that only certified.
I am too.
And you are too.
Yes.
Are you, Howard? Just not yet.
Taking the exam soon.
Okay. There are states where it cannot be disclosed that an individual is a certified elder law attorney.
Really?
And New York is one of them.
No kidding. And
So
why is that?
Well, they don't want attorneys to hold themselves out as specialists, and so that is a deterrent in New York for people to, in fact, take the NAILA certification exam. Nevertheless, I think it's important to demonstrate a requisite amount of knowledge, and so that's why I plan on taking the exam.
It's interesting, New Jersey's going in the opposite direction. They're certifying all kinds of areas. Really? We've had certified trial attorneys,
matrimonial law right now, I
think,
matrimonial attorneys.
Working on real estate, supposed to work on estate planning next. So, and a lot of states, Florida has certification in a lot of areas, including elder law.
Yeah, well, it's good for the consumer. And again, you know, I know each of your resumes and how long you've been in the business and how you concentrate in this particular area of the law. Now, give me a typical example. And I know you're probably going to say, Chris, there is no typical example. But what would you say one of the key or one of the more integral elements of what is concerning the elderly today as they sit in your office across from your desk, and what would you say their top two concerns are right now?
Healthcare issues, number one. Long-term care issues, number two, or perhaps the reverse. But long-term care issues are high on the list, as are health care issues. What happens to me if I become disabled? What happens to my resources? How does my family, if there is a family, care for me? Where am I going to be cared for? What are the conditions under which these things will take place? Those are the worries. And how do I get the kind of care that I believe I'm entitled to or would like to have without exhausting every penny of my hard-earned savings or impoverishing my spouse who has worked with me all these years?
Income, retirement income is another big one, I think. People are concerned what's going to happen with Social Security. 50% of people in private industry are not covered by pensions.